So we're up to Ois Gimel, and the Rebbe discussed the two inyonim about Vishilashto Tered Me'oid, that there is the idea of the Segel, which is the descent to be Mevarer Birurim, and then there is the Aliyah, the Segolto, that's the trop, Zarkos Segol also has the three dots. That's the level of elevation. And basically, there is the Vinifkadeto, which is the level of elevation, through, in other words, reaching the Segolto, reaching the highest, the level of Segolta, which comes about through Ki Yipokid Moshavecha, through the avoida of Vishilashto, the idea of Segol, which is Birurim, you reach to Segolta, to become Am Zgula, to become the precious, special level that you get through the Yerida. But the Rebbe explained that what does it mean? He brought down, what does it mean by Yomer Lo Yehoinoson from the Meir, and he brought down that Vayomer Loi means that Yehoinoson gave the Yutke Vovke from the level, the greatest level, from the level of Malchus, Yudke, and the Noson is also the level, the Keachrena Malchus. He gave Yehoinoson, he gave the level of Malchus, of Atzilus, the way it is in Atzilus, the level of Yam, that receives all the iris from the iris above, and it brings it down to David, to the level of Yabosha, the level of Eretz, brings it down into Malchus as it becomes a Sherish to Biyah. So the Rebbe is going to ask now, it seems, but on Erev Rosh Chodesh, when there is no moon, that's the level of V'nifkadeto. So how is it that that's the level of Ki Yipokid Moshavecha? Because that's the level in which this moon is not visible. That's Erev Rosh Chodesh. So how come we start off by saying Vayomer Lo Yehoinoson, that he gets the highest level? That seems to be more to V'nifkadeto. And here we're still before Rosh Chodesh Elul. We're still Erev Rosh Chodesh in the level which seems to be the level of Yipokid Mishavecha, the level of Bittel. So why do we start off with Vayomer Lo Yehoinoson? And the Rebbe will explain that we need that special koyach from the level of Malchus Atzilus, which contains the iris of Atzilus, to come down to the level of David, in order for the bittul of David to be able to be proper, ki yipoked mishavecha, so that it is mamshich, the level of v'nifkadeto. Let's look inside. Gimel. Tzarich lahavin, we need to understand Masha hascholas haftoida the mocher chodesh, the beginning of the haftoida of mocher chodesh. Meaning we're still now before chodesh, mocher will be chodesh. So why do we start who? What is the beginning? We say vayomer lo yehoinos. The lecheire, it would seem, had a toichen haftoida the mocher chodesh. What is the idea of the haftarah? What is the content? What is Machar Chodesh? Meaning, we're in the level of Bittel. Machar will be Chodesh. And in order to have the Levona, the Noila Levona, it has to be the level of Yipakid Mishabecha Shabichdei Sheyiyem Moiled HaLevona. Malchus, that in order that there should be the birth of the Levana on Rosh Chodesh, which is Malchus Tzorich Liyos Techilo Be'erev Rosh Chodesh. So first on that Rosh Chodesh needs to be Hayirida v'Hahester, the descent and the block needs to be the level of Yipoked, the level of descent and the block. Yipoked Mishavecha. Or as the Pasuk continues, the Rebbe says, the detail says, Teired Me'oid. You'll go very down, Eitzel ha'evan ha'ozel, by the evan ha'ozel, which is the throw far away place within the descent. So we have to have the level of Yipoket, the level of Hester. But v'inyan v'yomer lo yehoinosu shebetchilas haftorah. But what is the beginning of the haftorah? Yomer lo yehoinoson. What does it start with? That's on the contrary. It's not a descent. Tachlis hashleimus da malchus moker debiyah. That's the ultimate wholesomeness of malchus, being the moker debiyah, that in malchus of the moker of the biyah, level of David, you have the level of Yehoinosan, which is the ultimate shleimus, the gilui shemeir bo begilui b'chinas hamalchus da atzilus, that in malchus moker de biyah shines openly the level of malchus da atzilus, v'gam hamidas de zo, and also the midas of zo, because the midas of zo generally are obscure in malchus of atzilus, but when it comes down, as he said before, Hofach Yamla Yabosha, he breaks through and it comes down. That's a tremendous level, that the level of David, the level of Zo, level of Malchus, as it's a Mokar Biyah, gets Malchus that silus, the midas of Zo that are in Malchus. Kinalsi base. So how come we have a Yemer Lo Yoinoso? So the Rebbe explains that this is the introduction so that the bittul should be effective, so that the Yipoked Meshavecha should be in such a level that it can be mamshir de v'nifkadeto. Nekudas habiyur bazeh, and the point of the explanation in this, Shabichdei sheyiyah ha'inyan, the Yipoked Meshavecha, in order for this idea, the kind of your place should be missing the level of Yipoked Meshavecha, and ubeoifen, and such an extent, shal yidei zeh yiyah v'nifkadeto, that through this will come the nifkadeto, who al yidei hamshocha milmailo. It comes through hamshocha milmailo. That is the hamshocha milmailo before there is the level of Yipoked Meshavecha. We need a hamshocha milmailo, and then the Yipoked Meshavecha will be effective to be v'nifkadeto. V'zehu shetchilas ha'haftorah, and that's why the opening of the haftorah. Oid lifnei she'omrim hateves mochar chodesh. Even before we say the words of mochar chodesh, we start off with vayomer lo yehoinosu. So we start off that yehoinosu, vayomer lo yehoinosu. Basically, that shebetchilo nimshach b'malchus mochar debiyah ha'oiris da'atzilus. In the beginning, before we even start, before we even say mochar chodesh, when you start, we get in malchus, which is the mochar in malchus, as it is a mochar debiyah, we get the oiris da'atzilus, yoinosu, vayomer lo yoinosu. Ba'al yidei zeh, and then after you start Vayomer Lo Yonos, then we say Mocher Chodesh. Efsher liyis acher kach inya Mocher Chodesh. Then there could be the Mocher Chodesh. Hayirida v'hahester the haLevana, the descent and the block of the Levana, because Mocher Chodesh today is before Rosh Chodesh, so the Levana is totally hidden. It's the descent, the hidden Levana. Yipokid Meshavecho, which is Inyan Erev Rosh Chodesh. Mocher Chodesh means that it's before Rosh Chodesh, the level of Bittel, there's no Levana, this descent, the obscurity, the block of the Levana. Then Rosh Chodesh, you have Nifkadatu. So you have the level that before everything, Vayomer Lo Yehoinoson. Then you deal with Mocher Chodesh, which is the level of Bittel. It's Erev Rosh Chodesh. Yerida, the Hester, the Inyan of you pocket Mishavecha. And then the Rosh Chodesh is V'nifkadito, then you have the Gilui of the Chodesh of the Levon. So the Rebbe now wants to tie in the idea, especially about Erev Rosh Chodesh and Rosh Chodesh Sivan, which is the time that the Rebbe gave this mimer, meaning the Rebbe Marash gave this mimer over here, that was on Erev Rosh Chodesh Sivan. So the Rebbe wants to tie it specifically to Erev Rosh Chodesh Sivan and to the 3 months to Nisan, Iyer, and Sivan. So let's look inside. Pi hayadua goydel hadiyuk b'mamorei Rabbeinu Nisienu. As it's known, the great care of accuracy, the very specific in the Rebbe's Maimorim, of our leaders, of the Rabbeim's Maimorim, gam b'negeya lehashaychos the inyonim sheba Mahamorim. It's so precise that also as it connects to the ideas of the Maimorim, whatever they're discussing in the Maimer, lizman amirosim, to the time of saying it. So since the Rebbe is talking about the Maila of Erev Rosh Chodesh and Rosh Chodesh, this whole process, and this has a specific connection to the time that he said this Maimer. So Yesh Loimar, so therefore, so based on this, that everything is so precise, we can say the Inyan Hanal, that this above idea, Shahamshocha Divayomer Lo Yehoinoson Shaverev Rosh Chodesh, that when the Yomer Lo Yehoinoson that takes place on Erev Rosh Chodesh, Huki Inyan Hofach Yom Li Abosho, he says this is like the Kriyas Yamsuf, that he turned the sea into dry land that took place by Kriyas Yamsuf. So, because this was said on Erev Rosh Chodesh Sivan, umudgesh be'iker be'erev Rosh Chodesh Sivan, this is emphasized mainly, this concept that this splitting of the sea and it opens up is mainly on Erev Rosh Chodesh Sivan. Hazman da'amiras ha'maimer, the time of this maimer saying. So, Mela, the Rebbe has to explain now. Mela, if we said that it's shaykhs to the month of Nisan, or even the month of Eir, we see directly a connection between these months to Yitzias Mitzrayim or Kriyas Yamsuf, which took place on Nisan. And this is similar, Hafach Yom Layabosho, Bayomer Loi Yoinoson, which is a similar idea as the Maimer says. But how we're going to explain this with regards to Erev Rosh Chodesh Sivan? The Rebbe is going to explain now the unique 3 months in the Torah. It associates all these 3 months to Yitzias Mitzrayim, and ultimately the goal of Yitzias Mitzrayim is to get the Torah, is Sivan, is Matan Torah. Memela, the idea of Hofach Yam La'abosha Kriyas Yamsuf, which is the completion of Yitzias Mitzrayim, that is specifically connected to the month of Sivan. Let's look inside. We can understand this based upon what's explained elsewhere. Be'inyan Gimel Chodoshim Harishonim, about the 3 first months, starting Nisan, Iyar, Sivan. So the first 3 months, Nisan, Iyar, Sivan. It's explained elsewhere, the hatam shebegimul chadoshim eila davke niskar yitzias Mitzrayim. Why that in these 3 months specifically we mention Yitzias Mitzrayim, as the Rebbe quotes here. Chodesh ha'aviv, which is the month of the spring, which is Nisan. The pasuk says ki bo yotzoso mitzrayim, on the month of spring, Nisan, you went out of Mitzrayim. Then about the month of Eir, it says be'echad lachodesh hasheni, on the first of the second month, Eir, which is B'shona Hashenis L'tzeisam Eretz Mitzrayim. It was the second year of going out of Mitzrayim. So again, with regards to Eir, we find Yitzias Mitzrayim. And the same thing is about Sivan. The Pasuk says, B'chodesh Hashlishi L'tzeis B'nei Yisrael Meretz Mitzrayim, the third month when they went out of Mitzrayim. So we see in the Torah with regards to both all 3 months mentioning that Yitzias Mitzrayim. Why only in these 3 months? Who? So it's explained, Ki ha'tachlis the Yitzias Mitzrayim, because the goal of the exodus of Egypt, which is in Yonai the Chodesh Nisan, which is the idea of the month of Nisan, Matan Torah. So Yitzias Mitzrayim, that's the month of Nisan. And the goal of Nisan is Matan Torah in Yonah the Chodesh Sivan, is the month of Sivan. So that we know. So we have Yitzias Mitzrayim in Nisan, and we have Yitzias Mitzrayim in Sivan Matan Torah, because that's the goal. What about the month of Iyar? That's the month that we get to Matan Torah, Usfiras HaOmer. In Yonah the Chodesh Eir, and then when you count the Omer, which is the idea, the month of Eir, Hu HaMemutza, that's the intermediary, She'al Yodoi, through the month of Eir, Boyim Yitzias Mitzrayim L'Matan Torah. Through Eir, through Sfiras HaOmer, you come from Yitzias Mitzrayim to Matan Torah. And that's why they're all connected in the pasuk to Yitzias Mitzrayim, because they're all the goal and leads up to Matan Torah, and that's why it's mentioned Yitzias Mitzrayim. V'al pizeh yesh loymar. So based on this, we can say that when the Maimer says she'inyan v'yomer lo yehoinosu mochon chodesh hu ki'inyan hopach yom le'abosho, when it says v'yomer lo mochon chodesh is as we turn the sea to dry land, the great revelation that comes to the Oretz, to the Abosha, from the Yam, to the Atzilus and the Oretz of Zod to Malchus, Yeshorish Lebiyah, is Kimaimer Zeh Nemar B'Shabbos Erev Rosh Chodesh Sivan. This Maimer was said on Shabbos, Rosh Chodesh Sivan. Also the other Maimer the Rebbe brings down, V'kivon shechodesh Sivan, v'chein chodesh Eir, boim behemshech l'yitzias Mitzrayim, since the month of Sivan and also the month of Eir come as a continuation of Yitzias Mitzrayim, lochein be'erev Rosh Chodesh the Chodoshim Elu. So that's why on the Erev Rosh Chodesh of these months, because they're all associated with Yitzias Mitzrayim, mudgesh she'inyan v'yomer lo yoinosun. So it's emphasized in the Maimer that v'yomer lo yoinosun mochor chodesh, Udugma saying the Kriyas Yamsuf. That's why it says that the Yonason, Vayemer lo Yonason, the level of Yonason, but the level of Vayemer lo Yonason being Mamshich, the Giluyim of Malchus, the way it's an Atzilus to Malchus, the way it's a Mocker to Biyah, Udugma saying the Kriyas Yamsuf. So he brings down in the Maimer, discussing that similar to Kriyas Yamsuf, because Eir and Sivan is Hagamar de Yitzias Mitzrayim. That's the conclusion. Kriyas Yamsuf is the conclusion of Yitzias Mitzrayim. And therefore, he brings it down in these Maimorim, especially on Erev Rish Chodesh of Eir and Sivan. So here the Rebbe basically says it's a general connection between both Eir and Sivan and Nisan too, but in that Erev Rish Chodesh that the Rebbe discusses the Maimed, the great Giluyim of Kriyas Yamsuf, is very fitting because these months are the Hemshech of Yitzias Mitzrayim, so it's appropriate and it's fitting that there should be discussing the Gilui of Kriyas Yamsuf, Havach Yom Le'abosha, which is the Gemara of Yitzias Mitzrayim. But the Rebbe will further explain why specifically now in Ois Daled, it's specifically to Erev Rosh Chodesh Sivan, even more than Erev Rosh Chodesh Iyar. The Rebbe is going to say that these 3 months that we're talking about the 3 levels. Vayomer loy yoinoson, that's the koyach milmaylo. Then we talk about the descent, the Yerida, the Mocher Chodesh, the obscurity of the Levana, the level of Vinif Kipoked Meshavecho. And the third, we're talking about Vinif Kadeto, the higher level, getting the level of the Segolto. So it says, these 3 Yeshloimar, Shegimul Ho'inyonim Shebegimul Chodoshim Hanal. The 3 aspects that are in these 3 months, which right now we're talking about the month Yitzias Mitzrayim, Sfiras HaOmer, we're talking about counting of the Omer, the middle, the month of Iyar, Matan Torah, the month of Sivan, and Dugmas Gimel Hinyonim, these are similar to the 3 matters. Vayomer lo Yehoinoson, Gomer. Then we have the Vinifkadeto, and then we have Ki Yipoket Meshavech. So, how do they match up? Yitzias Mitzrayim Shabo Al Yidei Hamshocha Milmaylo. Yitzias Mitzrayim, which comes through Hamshocha from above. That's Al Derech Hayin Devayemer Liyonos Devayemer. Liyonosan. I'm not sure if there's an extra vav over here. The Vayomer Liyonosan. Looks like there's an extra vav over here. But anyways, okay, now, as we said before, Shaham Shochet the Vayomer Liyonosan, he al derech Ha'inyan the Kriyas Yamsuf, that Vayomer Liyonosan, which is the Gilui from Yoinosan, is similar to Kriyas Yamsuf, in which the Giluyim come, break through, Hafach Yom La'abosha, which is Hagamar Yitzias Mitzrayim. So that is the conclusion of Yitzias Mitzrayim, Kriyas Yamsuf. So this is all Yitzias Mitzrayim, is Vayomer Lo Yehoinosan. Then we have Sfiras HaOmer. That's Hayirida the Nefesh HaLekiz V'Hislapshusa B'Nefesh HaBahamis. That is the descent of the godly soul. It dresses up in the animal soul. B'chdei Levarer HaMidas Nefesh HaBahamis, in order to sort out the Midas of Nefesh HaBahamis, that is Sfiras HaOmer. That's Al Derech Ha'inyan the Yipoket Meshavech. That is similar to the idea that your seat will be missing, meaning the Yerida, the descent into Biyah, to work with the Nefesh HaBahamis. That's the connection with the second part. And then, as we teach Vishilashto, Teired Ma'oi, the level of the Nekuda of the Segel, Bichdei Levarer Birurim. Shilashto, Teired Ma'oi, you have the tremendous descent into the level of a Segel, which is the Birurim, and Elam Hazeh is Bichdei, in the Biyah, is Bichdei Levarer Birurim, to Sora the Birurim. So that's number 2. And number 3, Vagilui the Matan Torah Shabo La'achre Avodas HaBirurim D'Sfiras Omer. That you have the revelation that come in the month of Sivan, Matan Torah, which comes after the Avodas Birurim D'Sfiras Omer, Shehu Naila Yoiser, that is even higher, Gamle Hagilui the Yitzias Mitzrayim Mikriyas Yamsuf Shalifnei Avodah. That is on a higher level, even higher than the Gilui of Yitzias Mitzrayim and Kriyas Yamsuf, which was the Vayomer Lo Yohinoson, the beginning, Shalifnei Avodah. That was the koyach that was given for the Avodah. The Hamshocha that we get through the Yipokid Meshavecha, the Nifkadeto, we get a higher level. Derech HaInyan, the Nifkadeto. This is similar to the Kasel Achre Yipokid Meshavecha. That follows Yipokid Meshavecha, you get the Nifkadeto. Shehu Naila Yoiser, that is a higher level. Gam Mehagilui de Vayomer Lo Yohinoson Shalifnei Zeh, also than the Gilu of Yomer Lo Yohinoson that comes before that. So you have these 3 stages. You have the stage of Nisan, which you have the Gilu Milmailo. You have the stage of Eir, which is the Birurim. And you have the stage of Sivan, which is even a higher Gilu, which is similar to Vayomer Lo Yohinoson. That's the first step. And then you have the Yipokid Meshavecha, the Birurim, the second step. And then you have the Vinifkateto, which is the high. So based on this, that we divided up now the months like this, that the Erev Rosh Chodesh Sivan, that when it's an Erev Rosh Chodesh Sivan had Goshe, the Vayomer Lo Yohinoson Hi Beiker, that we're talking about now about Sivan. Sivan is the time that we get the Madreges of the Nifkadeto. So the main emphasis on Erev Rosh Chodesh Sivan, Vayomer Lo Yohinoson, Hi Beiker B'Negei Lezeh, it's mainly as it relates Shal Yidei HaHamshocha de Vayomer Lo Yohinoson, that through the Hamshocha Vayomer Lo Yohinoson, Nimshach Hanas Ksinas Koyach Alo Inyan de Vinifkadeto, that gives the power on the idea of Nifkadeto, that the Yomer Lo Yohinoson brings about later on through that it brings about the higher level of Matan Torah de Nifkadeto. Not on the month of Eir Lamashul. Over there, the emphasis would be that the Yomer Lo Yohinoson, because it's the avodah of Yipoked Meshavecha Eir. But in Sivan, the avodah is the betel, the level of the level, not the betel level of the higher, the Hamshocha from Vinifkadeto. So Erev Rosh Chodesh Sivan, the emphasis is that through Vayomer Lo Yohinoson, we come to the level of Vinifkadeto, which means that's the Inyan Segolto, that's the trop, the Segolto, Segol, Zarkos, Segol, the Segolto, and which is the level of Segula Shebe Vishilashto, in the Shilashto. Vishilashto, we say, has both. Vishilashto, you'll go down Birurim in the Nekuda Segel, which is the Hamshocha Lamato, but this is connected to Segolto, the Vinifkadeto, the level of Segula in that comes, and that comes through Vayomer Lo Yohinoson. Ukemevur behamaimer, as the Maimer explains, Hashaychus, the Vishilashto Teired Me'oid Likriyas Yamsuf, Vayomer Lo Yohinoson, that when it says Vishilashta Teired Me'oid, so how is this to the Kriyas Yam Yemer Lo Yehoy Noson? The Pirush Vishilashta Teired Me'oid. So L'chaire, we're saying that Shilashta Teired Me'oid. What does it mean that it goes down? But going down is the level of Birurim. No. In this context, it's the level of Vinifkadito. But in this context, that the Vinifkadito goes so far that it comes down all the ways into the lower levels. That the Pirush Vishilashto Teiret Ma'oid Gomer. What does it mean? Vishilashto, you descend, V'yashavta Itzel Even Ha'ozel. In this context of Benifkatito, this is the higher level, Husha Inyan the Segolto Sgula. That this idea of Segolto, which is Sgula, the higher level, Shenimshach al Yidei Birurim, that came through the Birurim. Yumshach Lamato, that this should descend below. Teired Me'oid should go down. This highest level should descend very much ad the Asiya, up till all the ways to Asiya, which is Even Ha'ozel. The stone, the Eben Ozel, that represents Asiya. That is where it comes down. Al derech hagilu de kriyas yamsuf. This is similar. The revelation of kriyas yamsuf, which is the idea of Yemer lo yoinosu. This is similar. Hafach yom le'abosha, just like the gil of kriyas yamsuf. Shanimshach gam bedargis hatachtoinas da Asiya. That descended also in the lower levels of Asiya, because we say it also Shivchachulu, that even a maid servant can see by the sea what the greatest of the prophets couldn't see, which means that this great revelation of Kriyas Yamsuf came down even to a Shivcha, even to a maid servant. That is the lowest level. So that's an Erev Rosh Chodesh Sivan. The emphasis, how it comes down, the highest level through Vayemer Lo Yonos, the lowest level. But to Erev Rosh Chodesh Iyer, but an Erev Rosh Chodesh Iyer had Gosher, the Vayemer Lo Yonos, and he, over there, Vayemer Lo Yonos is mainly emphasizing B'ikesh al Yidei Ze Nimshach HaNesinas Koyach, that through Vayemer Lo Yonos, we have the Koyach Alo Inyan the Yipoket Meshavecho, on the concept that your seat will be lacking on that level of descent. That's the Inyan Segel. The Segel Beshabi Vishilashto. The Segel, the Avedis Abirurim, Avedis Abirurim, the Avedis Abirurim. So the Rebbe explains now that specifically according to the month of Sivan is the month of Nifkadeto. So Vayomer Lo Yoinoson, that we say in Erev Rosh Chodesh, is the preparation from Vayomer Lo Yoinoson in order to get to the highest level of Vinifkadeto. And why does it say Vishilashto Teired Ma'ed? Meaning that it reaches, just like Kriyas Yamsuf reached the Shivcha, it reaches to the lowest level. But Erev Rosh Chodesh Iyer, over there, the emphasis that the through Vayomer Lo Yoinoson, you have the koyach of birurim of Yipoket Meshavecho, and that's the segel shebevishilashto, the avedus abiru. Okay, let's leave it over here, and we'll mamshik tomorrow.
Have a good day.
Thank you.